and the Jaguars, looking at things that we might want to be doing with our lineups this week. And anybody you might be looking particularly to start?
Well, I'm still starting Brian Thomas Jr. I know that what Steve was mentioning with Christian Gonzalez there, that's a little bit of a concern. I think that's more for the DFS-minded people where you want to pay attention to the cornerback, wide receiver matchups. But what I've seen out of Brian Thomas Jr. this season is kind of what I expected coming out of college, and he's exceeded my expectations. He leads this team in all relevant passing categories. And I think if the Jags truly want to be successful moving forward, they got to get Brian Thomas Jr. more involved. One of the biggest issues I have with the Jags is that they just don't seem to match the play calling to their personnel. Like, run the play for the players. This isn't a situation where you come in and you're like, it's my way or the highway. It's like, no, you got a player like Brian Thomas Jr., use him to the best of his abilities.
Well, that's sort of what the Patriots are trying to do on the other side, which is why I like Demario Douglas as a sleeper. There are a lot of young wide receivers on this offense, but Demario Douglas continues to sort of be out ahead of the pack there. He's the most targeted player on this Patriots team. 92 yards and a touchdown last week playing with Drake May, and has a very good matchup this week against a Jaguars defense that has struggled, giving up 93 receptions, 2 wide receivers, second most, over 1,100 yards to the position. So in a game that might be kind of sloppy on both sides, but could feature both teams throwing the football a lot, Demario Douglas does have some very nice sleeper appeal.
Mahomes firing for the end zone, wide open, caught, touchdown! Purdy back, throws, touchdown!
The savior, Jawan Jennings.
McKinnon is in at running back, first down and goal to go. Play action fake, right side throw, touchdown! There is a back-to-back Super Bowl champion.
I feel like showing that music video was a shot at me. I'm kind of taking that personally. The Chiefs and Niners meet again on Sunday. They have played in the Super Bowl in 2 of the last 5 seasons. Should be an interesting one at Levi Stadium this week. But as you're looking at this one, Florio, quarterbacks who have very big name value, who are very interesting to watch. So obviously we're starting both these guys this week.
I think it's a week to beware of both quarterbacks in this game because, one, Patrick Mahomes has been much more of a name than of a fantasy value this year. Just 14 fantasy points per game, and his highest finish is QB 12. Every other game, he's finished somewhere between 16 and 18 at the position. And the Niners have allowed over 15 fantasy points to a quarterback just twice in 6 games this year. And then on the other side, Purdy himself has only topped 15 twice. We've seen a couple of really big games out of him, but the other games are more like low floor kind of games. The Chiefs, since week 2, Lamar carved him up in week 1, but since that game, they've allowed just 13.5 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. So not must sits, but if you have another option, I think you take it and you get away.
Steve Spagnuolo, very complimentary of Brock Purdy this week, which seems like how you start it when you drop a hammer on somebody. Even if you worry about Purdy, I'm not really worried about Brandon Ayuk. And I know for a lot of managers, it's been a frustrating year with Ayuk. This is a reminder. He is a must-start for you. All the fundamentals are strong. 90% route participation, 23% target share, 30% air yard share. The big issues so far this year, just not catching it quite as well as he has in the past. Catch rate over expected and yards after catch are down big for Ayuk so far this season. But the Chiefs play primarily man, or at least they play more man than a lot of other teams do around the league. That is where Brandon Ayuk excels. He's able to win those one-on-one matchups. If that's what Kansas City decides to do, I think you're going to see Brock Purdy find a way to get him the ball consistently. Over to the Texans and the Packers. Interesting one in Green Bay this week. Still no Nico Collins rank, so this means are we back on the tank?
Well, I was on Tank Dell last week, and I'm going to continue to play Tank Dell in this matchup against the Green Bay Packers. What we saw last week was close to 30% target share in week 6, which was the second highest of his career. Now he's got a matchup against the Green Bay Packers, who've allowed 15-plus fantasy points to 7 different wide receivers this season. They've allowed 7 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers this year. That's tied for the 8th most in the NFL. The strength of the Packers defense is in stopping the run. You can throw on this team, and I think that Tank Dell is going to go out there and have another good fantasy performance.
Well, and because you can throw on the Packers and the Houston Texans do that effectively, I'm saying you should beware of Josh Jacobs. And maybe you can't get away from him. I certainly understand that. But this is a guy who is very game script dependent. He has sort of survived as a volume shooter this season. The volume of touches is key fourth in the NFL in rush attempts, but only one touchdown all season, despite the Packers trying to be a lot more run-heavy than a lot of other offenses. He's not been the most efficient back, and if this turns into a game where Green Bay has to go to the air to match what Houston is doing offensively, you're going to see a lot less of Josh Jacobs. Plus, not to mention, the Texans giving up the 8th fewest rushing yards this season to the running back position. Huge game in the NFC North between the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. And Florio, one thing that has frustrated us has been Sam Laporta, because the guy that you like is basically taking food off his plate.
Yeah, Jameson Williams is the clear-cut number 2 target for Jared Goff in this offense, and that makes him a start this week. Not only has he shown a safe floor with 14 fantasy points and over 75 yards in all but one game, last week he had 18, and that was with a touchdown that was called back. We know he brings a safe floor, but I think this could be an upside game because not only do the Vikings allow the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers, shout out to Kendall and Kareem for this, they use cover 0 at the highest rate in the NFL. The Lions this year have ran one non-red zone play against cover 0. It was a 70-yard touchdown pass to Jameson Williams. So just a little bit more reason to get excited for him this week.
He doesn't always catch touchdowns, but when he does, they always seem to be pretty big ones. So we'll see how that goes this week. But I'm going to say to beware of Aaron Jones on the other side. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury that has had him limited in practice, so you don't really like that. The other part you don't really like is that the Lions are a terrible matchup for running backs this year, giving up just 83 rushing yards per game. Only one running back this year has had more than 50 rushing yards against Detroit. That was Kenneth Walker back in week 4. So you've got a guy that is not at 100%, going against a very good defense in a game that could potentially be high scoring. It all just sort of adds up to a not great potential game for Aaron Jones, and one that I wouldn't be really excited about starting him in. Jets and the Steelers. The Jets hoping to show off their brand new toy with Davante Adams. And look, you can't get away from Davante, can you?
No, I at first this week, I was like, maybe he doesn't know the playbook. And then I quickly came around and was like, no, he is a must-start option this week because of the chemistry that he has with Aaron Rodgers. We know that Aaron Rodgers is going to try to get his boy the ball as much as possible. And if he doesn't, things might get a little weird at the breakfast table the next day. But NFL Pro has quick and deep passes as a big advantage for the Jets offense in this week. From 2018 to 2022, Rodgers to Davante Adams led the NFL in yards on quick passes, and they were 4th in yards on deep passes. So I like Adams a lot to get going as a Jet this week.
I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson as a start, even though he doesn't presumably live in Aaron Rodgers' house. The only thing I can take away from that appearance on the Pat McAfee show, despite the fact that I expect Davante Adams to be heavily targeted, there should be enough opportunity for Garrett Wilson in this offense. And being able to slide into the slot, I think, just helps him out more and more. So for me, I think a lot of people have been getting off the Garrett Wilson hype train. I'm on, fully on. And I would try to swing a deal for him this week before people realize, like, oh yeah, he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, no, I think being able to move him to the slot does wonders because now he doesn't have to match up against the other team's top corners. He had some really tough matchups to start the season. It is time for Plug and Play. Plug and Play. Plug and Play. All right, we're done.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody who sends in your lineups. The lucky or maybe unlucky winner, depending on how things turn out this week, is Sergio, who's got a very, very talented lineup. One thing that we did learn, we did reach out to Sergio because he had 2 quarterbacks.
He did.
He had Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. He did make a trade. He traded Jaden Daniels for Kenneth Walker. So can you give us a quick evaluation of that trade?
I love this trade so much. He took advantage of the strength at the quarterback position. 99% of the time, when people are like, I'm drafting a quarterback to trade him, never works.
Never works.
Never works. Never works. This is the one time it works. Sergio, congratulations to you. I'm assuming you go to Georgetown?
Yeah, it's a little Sergio Hoya paranoia, maybe? I don't know.
That's the only thing that I consider, but what a great move. And you get Kenny Walker, who probably is going to end up in your lineup.
I would think so.
I would put him in over Jordan Mason. I know there's some. Are you talking running back?
I will talk about it in a little bit, but
let me hold on.
Let's talk some wide receivers though, because you got Wandale.
I was at the meeting. I should have remembered that.
That's all right. It happens.
The one thing that stood out to me when looking at this, the alarm bells went off when I saw Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, the cool thing about Wan'Dale Robinson is that Malik Neighbors is going to return, which a lot of times you'd be like, why is that good? It's like, well, Malik Neighbors actually draws a lot of coverage, which gives more opportunity to Wan'Dale Robinson. But still, the one player in this lineup that I would love to start is, this machine's saying, no, don't do it. I'm going to start Darnell Mooney, who's been a big factor for this Falcons offense so far this season. One of the things that we love, he's getting targeted. He's had at least 6 targets in 4 of his 6 games this season. And Kendall, why are you besmirching the Bears by saying that he was targeted more than 6 times in just 4 games last? That's not his fault. That's not his fault, Kendall. Next Ken's stats. You're just going to put a little jab in there at me? I get it. I take this highly personal. Darnell and I are good. I would never besmirch the man in that such a way. But Kirk Cousins definitely loves throwing him the football in a pretty good matchup, too. So I really like this for Darnell Mooney. I would probably move him in for Wan'Dale Robinson, although I would understand if you didn't want to take that advice.
Wan'Dale Robinson targets are like white Rice Krispies. You get a whole lot of them, they don't necessarily fill you up a whole lot. But, you know, they're tasty with chocolate milk and that sort of thing. The running back spot, so we do mention that Kenneth Walker is here. I for sure want him in, so I'm going to put him at the RB2 spot. Now, that doesn't mean I'm completely moving on from Jordan Mason. I would try to move him to the flex spot over here for Demario Douglas. But now keep in mind, because we did hear earlier in the show Ian Rappaport saying that he is up in the air. If he can go, because he plays on Sunday afternoon, if he can go against the Chiefs, I would like to play him. If he cannot go, I think your other option is Marvin Harrison Jr., who plays the second of the 2 Monday night games against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Is he ready to go?
We'll see.
So you got to make a decision because Demario Douglas plays
the first game.
Eastern.
He's the first game of Sunday.
So when he's gone, he's gone.
Yes.
He can't go back.
He cannot. And I guess you still do have. You have Juju.
You can go Wan'Dale.
Yeah, you can go Wan'Dale. You can go. So there are options there. I would like to have Jordan Mason if I possibly could, if he's going to go. So keep an eye on his situation coming up.
This is a late window game on Sunday. All right.
Yes, exactly. So here's it. Demario Douglas may or may not be in your lineup. I do think he has some sleeper vibes this week. We're going to go over to our. So Amari Cooper very positive about his quarterback situation there in Buffalo. The Bills taking on the Titans this week, and I wonder if the Titans receivers are quite as optimistic about their quarterback situation.
Calvin Ridley said he doesn't want to be traded.
So yeah. He also said he wants more targets in the first quarter. I would still tell you to sit either of the Titans receivers that you have, whether it is DeAndre Hopkins or Calvin Ridley. Right now, this offense really not able to get going. They are struggling in the passing game. Will Levis, I thought was going to have a nice game against the Colts recently. He didn't get over 100 passing yards in that one. The strength of this Bills defense is in the secondary. So you have a struggling passing game against a good passing defense. I do not want to mess with any part of this. If you have a Titans receiver, you're keeping him on the bench this week.
This is why we're starting Tony Pollard. 19-plus touches in 4 of his last 5 games this year. The Bills have allowed the second most fantasy points per game to running backs this season. They've allowed the most targets, receptions, receiving yards, all that good stuff to running backs. Listen, Tony Pollard was a player that I completely whiffed on during the offseason, but he has absolutely exceeded expectations, even lofty expectations that Titan fans might have had. So I'm absolutely starting him this week. I think he's a top 5 guy.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fantastic this week. Meanwhile, at SoFi Stadium, we have the Battle of LA. I know the Raiders play in Las Vegas. I don't care. It's still the Battle of Los Angeles with the Raiders and the Rams. Rams hoping to get one of their big pieces back on offense. So does this mean that player is going to be starting for you?
Yeah, you have to make sure that Cooper Kupp is playing Sunday, but if he plays for the Rams, he plays for you in fantasy, and I really need him this week. Last I checked, Matthew Stafford is still his quarterback, and Matthew Stafford is a wide receiver whisperer. He will lock in and just feed his number 1 target. In the one fully healthy game Kupp has played this year, he had 21 targets, and in the game and a half he played, he has been the first read on a league-high 52% of plays. So yeah, as long as he is healthy and playing, you are playing him in fantasy.
One guy that I think you might be playing, maybe a little bit of a crazy start if you think about it, but Alexander Mattison has some sleeper vibes this week. Zamir White has not been very effective at all, and once upon a time, we thought that Alexander Mattison getting signed to the Raiders just meant more for Zamir White. Turns out Madison was the guy she told you not to worry about. Instead, he's become a guy who's not game script dependent. He's catching the football. He's running it just as well as White is, for whatever that is worth. Going against the Rams defense that has struggled all season long. So in a deep league, maybe Alexander Madison is a flex option for you. Over to the Battle of Ohio. The Bengals go to Cleveland to visit the Browns. And Rank, sometimes this fantasy thing is easy. You just identify a matchup and you exploit it as much as you can.
What team is starting Deshaun Watson? I want to play the other team's defense, which is what I will be doing in a lot of my leagues. Although, people ask me, they're like, hey, do you win a lot of your leagues? And I'm like, not really. You want to know why? Because I went to go pick up the Bengals DST in my league of record, and they were not there. And I'm like, how do these idiots know to pick up the Bengals? And I looked, and it was Chief number 1, Mark DePaulo. Mark DePaulo, like, Mark, there's no way you knew this on your own. You watched the Tuesday show, and so you rushed out and picked up the Bengals. This is why I lose. This is why I lose all the time. But the Bengals defense is the defense to add this week.
Yeah, they are absolutely a must-start defense this week. And the only Brown that I really want to play this week is David Njoku. I would get away from the rest, but Njoku took a step forward last week with 7 targets, and now with Amari Cooper, who was leading them in targets and air yards gone, that could open up more volume for him. Plus, Deshaun Watson is constantly under pressure, so he probably wants to get rid of the ball quickly. That will be the targets to David Njoku. And the Bengals, if they haven't struggled against any positions this year, it's been tight end.
Yeah, the Bengals defense, an easy start this week. If they're out there, go get them and plug them in your lineup. We got the Panthers and the Commanders. Again, on the line, it'll say car wash, and that's going to be fun for you to say all day long. Look.
Wouldn't it be car was?
It would be car was. My car was dirty, and then I took it to the car wash, and then now it's clean.
Put the H in just for this.
Just for fun, just for laughs. But Andy Dalton, he's been good for the Panthers since he took over.
Absolutely. This is a really good matchup for Andy Dalton. He's played well ever since he's been installed as the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. And the Commanders' defense, it's not great. They've allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this season. They've allowed 12 touchdown passes this year. They have just 1 interception this season. And I know next week, when Caleb Williams throws 5 touchdowns against these bums, he's going to be like, who have they played? I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the point. But yeah, go get Andy Dalton this week. Another former Bear.
Former Bear. That's right.
Where did he play before that? Cincinnati.